welcome to Live Interactive English. Hi everyone, I am Mike.
And I am Karen. Today we are looking at day 1 of the Orient Express. Special journeys to amazing places. Wait a minute, can I just ask you a question?
Of course.
What's the Orient Express?
It's a train.
Oh, I love trains. I've taken trains before.
Yeah, this is a train unlike any train you've taken before. Take a train and combine it with a 5-star hotel.
Fancy.
And fancy service from like 100 years ago when it's yes ma'am and yes sir and everyone dresses really nice. No blue jeans, no t-shirts. You gotta look really good.
Dress code.
And you're gonna be on a train and you will be eating some of the finest food and sleeping in some of the most comfortable train cabins in a way that people used to travel. Rich people used to travel 100 years ago. You can do it again now, today, as long as you're also quite rich.
Oh no, so that means it's very expensive. I was going to say that I want to try too.
You can definitely try it, but you'll have to save your money for a while.
Really?
A few years.
A few years?
Maybe longer.
Oh no! Is it worth it though?
That's what it says. It's a special journey. So it's not really about, hey, I gotta go here, I'm gonna take a train. It's about, I wanna take this train anywhere, because it's the trip, it's the journey, it's being on the train, the experience of that luxury and that history.
Wow.
That's what people are paying for.
Have you ever taken the Orient Express?
Heck no. as soon as I get a big raise from our boss, I will be on it. But until then, no, I'll just take the Gautier to Kaohsiung. But
because
nice.
That's pretty nice too.
It's okay.
Our
It's just
HSR is really nice.
It's not 100 years old with 5-star service, but hey, it gets you where you're going
very quickly.
Much faster too. Yeah,
that's right.
So we're going to take a special journey to amazing places on a very special and amazing train, the Orient Express. Let's find out all about it. Start saving your money now.
On October 4th, 1883, the Orient Express set off on its first journey. This 7-day round trip from Paris to Constantinople, now Istanbul, raised the bar for high-class train travel. The Orient Express was the brainchild of Georges Nagelmakers, a Belgian businessman. Nagelmakers was inspired by sleeper trains he had seen in the US. However, he wanted to improve on the American experience. So, he created a service that combined railway travel with unbeatable style. His trains had sleeping cars that were as comfortable as any hotel, beautiful decorations, and even restaurants serving top-quality food.
All right, so the Orient Express, that's the classic name of this train journey to, well, many different places, right? Trains often go to many different places along their line. And we know that it is a special journey or special journeys to amazing places, both in the past and in the future. It might be a little bit different from the way it started, but it is still a magical thing to do. It is still a special journey to an amazing place.
Because it's very luxurious, very fancy, and very expensive, right?
Yeah.
And if you are very, very rich, then you can go on this special journey. Or start saving now. So what's a journey though? So journey, that is a noun. A journey means a trip or travel from one place to another, often over a long period of time. So for example, you can say, throughout their journey across Europe, they experienced many different cultures. So they didn't just go to one place. Their journey went from one country to another country to another country in Europe. So it's a long journey and they experienced many different cultures, of course, in many different countries.
Exactly right. So let's go back in time and find out how this big train journey, how this famous train journey originally began. It says on October 4th, 1883, the Orient Express set off on its first journey. So that was the first time this train called the Orient Express ever went anywhere. And where was it going back then? In 1883, it says this 7-day round trip from Paris to Constantinople, now Istanbul, raised the bar for high-class train travel. Okay, so it was a 7-day journey, that's a week-long, a round-trip journey. That means you would go there and come back in 7 days. So about 3.5 days and 3.5 days. Generally, when we go somewhere on a trip, we're going on a round trip, right? Unless you're moving somewhere and you will stay there, you generally do a round trip. You go to Japan, you have some fun, you come back to Taiwan. That's a round trip, returning to where you started. And this was from Paris, of course, the capital of France, to Constantinople, which is a city that is now called Istanbul. And of course, this is in Turkey, right on the western edge of Turkey, where it meets Europe. And this raised the bar for high-class train travel. When someone raises the bar, it kind of sets a new, better, higher standard. So if suddenly someone sets a record in the 100-meter dash or something, it raises the bar. If someone is suddenly much better than the other people doing the same job, they've really raised the bar. Wow, they've made everyone work harder because everything is now much better. People expect more. So it raised the bar for train travel.
That's right. High-class train travel, right?
Very much so.
Something that is very comfortable, very expensive, very luxurious. Now back to the article. The Orient Express was the brainchild of Georges Nagelmakers, a Belgian businessman. Oh, so what's a brainchild?
A brainchild is an idea. That's basically all it is. A brainchild it's a child that comes from your brain. In other words, it's an idea, often a good idea or a new invention or something like that. You know, we can say that the record player, the electric light bulb were the brainchildren of Thomas Edison. Or, you know, the telephone was the brainchild of Alexander Graham Bell. It was the thing they created, the thing they imagined, the thing that they invented or, you know, had or made for the very first time. I love that name, Georges Nagelmakers.
That's right.
Great name.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。今天的课文标题是 The Orient Express Special Journeys to Amazing Places。那么其中的 Orient Express 就是东方快车，单字 journey 这个名词则表示旅程或是旅行。东方快车的首航是在1883年10月4号，从巴黎到君士坦丁堡，也就是现在的伊斯坦堡。那这一趟7天的往返旅程，提升了高级列车旅行的标准。那东方快车是比利时商人乔治·纳格尔马克斯的创意产物。文中用到 brainchild， 像是大脑的小孩，它也就是指创意产物、智慧结晶。这边还有一个重点是 raise the bar， 表示提高门槛标准或者是提升要求。那这个用法源自于体育比赛，特别是跳高或者是撑杆跳。当这个 bar 也就是横杆被抬高时，选手就需要达到更高的标准才能成功跳过。后来这个片语被引申为提高门槛，让某事变得更具挑战性。举例来说 ，The company's new product raises the bar for its competitors。这间公司的新产品为对手提高了竞争门槛。介华课文中。
Okay, we are back with Monsieur Georges Nagelmakers. He's the guy who had the idea of the Orient Express. It was his brainchild. It says Nagelmakers was inspired by sleeper trains he had seen in the U.S.
Sleeper trains, what are those? Those
Trains
where you can
sleep on.
So they have beds?
Yeah, exactly. They would have cars for eating, cars for sitting, and also cars for sleeping in. And of course, he saw these, as it says in the U.S. America is very big. So back then, if you wanted to travel from, say, New York to San Francisco, you could get all the way across America, but that would take many, many days. That's why they had these sleeper trains. I guess it's true in Europe, which is much smaller. It was probably easy to go to many places just in one day. So they didn't really have sleeper trains as much as they did in the US. So he kind of thought this is fun, you know, traveling on a train, sleeping on the train, you live on it for a few days, but he wanted to make it really fancy in that special European way. It says, however, he wanted to improve on the American experience experience. He wanted to make it better. When you improve something, you make it better. So he created a service that combined railway travel with unbeatable style. Thank you for doing that with me. He put those two things together, so you will get to go somewhere, but you will be doing it with luxury, with style, with very high class everything.
That's right. So the sleeper train was just not enough, right? You probably want really, really good food, and the beds have to be very, really comfortable, right? Okay, so let's continue. His trains had sleeping cars that were as comfortable as any hotel, beautiful decorations, and even restaurants serving top quality food. And that's what you were talking about. It's a 5-star hotel, but on a train, right?
Exactly right.
That is why it costs so much and very fancy and very expensive.
这一位比利时商人在美国看到了卧铺车，那受到启发，他想要改善美国的乘车体验，于是打造了一种结合铁路旅行和非常气派的服务。他的列车配有跟任何饭店一样舒适的卧铺车厢，有精美的装饰，甚至还有供应顶级美食的餐厅。这边有一个重点是as 形容词 as any 加名词，这表示跟任何点点点一样怎么样。那这个句型是用来强调某事物跟任何事物相比毫不逊色。例如 Their steak is as delicious as any meal from a 5-star restaurant. 他们的牛排就跟5星级餐厅的任何餐点一样美味。好，这条课文中。
All right, that's the time for our break here. We're going to take a little bit of a short break and we're going to come back with more about the Orient Express, the brainchild of Georges Nagelmackers. Love that name.
Originally, the name Orient Express was used to describe a specific service that traveled across Europe via the grand cities of Strasbourg, Munich, Vienna, Budapest, and Bucharest. However, new routes were added later. Over time, the name came to represent a certain type of high-end train travel rather than a particular journey. Interest in the Orient Express grew in 1934 after murder mystery author Agatha Christie published Murder on the Orient Express. The book saw Detective Hercule Poirot investigate a suspicious death on the train. Since then, several film and TV adaptations have brought the tale to new audiences, most recently in 2017.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we were talking about this fancy train called the Orient Express, the one that's very, very famous and the one that's very fancy. It's like a 5-star hotel and a train, right? And then this is actually the brainchild of Georges Nagelmackers, right?
Exactly right. A Belgian guy. He'd done a long train journey in America, overnight sleeping on the train.
That's
He
right.
thought, this is great, but it's a little rough. You know, they're probably serve hamburgers and stuff, you know, America. So he decided to kind of bring it to Europe and give it that European style and have fancy rooms, beautiful
Fancy
decorations. I'm sure he got like chefs from the best restaurants in Paris
That's
to
right.
work on the train and prepare food for, you know, high-class travelers who have the money and the time to make these very interesting journeys. It says originally, back in 1883, when Georges Nagelmackers had the idea and the first trains were running, so originally the name Orient Express was used to describe a specific service that traveled across Europe via the grand cities of Strasbourg, Munich, Vienna, Budapest, and Bucharest, and eventually maybe on to Istanbul or Constantinople in Turkey. Of course, starting in Paris. So it would go from Paris all the way down to Turkey through these cities. Strasbourg is in eastern France, right on the border with Germany. Munich, of course, Germany. It's actually, if you look at a map, this is kind of a nice line, kind of going, you know, right through Europe.
To explore the different places,
That's right. Budapest in Hungary and Bucharest, I believe, is in Romania. And so you're basically going from Western Europe across Eastern Europe and ending up in Turkey. Kind of a nice journey. And what did it took? It took a week.
That's right.
Right, round trip, three days there, kind of 3 days back. So that was the idea.
And however, new routes were added later. Over time, the name came to represent a certain type of high-end train travel rather than a particular journey. Okay, so it's not because of the train type, but rather than this type of journey, the expensive, luxurious journey that is called the Orient Express,
Exactly right. I mean, here in Taiwan, we have the HSR. It only kind of goes one way. But, you know, in Japan, right, the bullet train, it goes all over. It doesn't just go from Tokyo to Osaka. You can take it many places. It's the style of train that you're on, not so much one way of going on it or one route.
That's right. Okay, so you can say route or route, right? So that's a noun. A route or route is simply a way or path from one place to another, like the path you take to get to school or the road you follow on a trip. For example, you can say, we took a different route or route from the airport to avoid the heavy traffic.
Okay, yeah. Obviously, if you're walking somewhere, you might take a very direct route or route. If you're driving, you might have to kind of go around or something. All just different ways of getting from A over to B.
最初，东方快车这个名字是用来形容穿越欧洲、经过一些主要城市特定路线的服务。不过后来又增加了新的路线，那久而久之，这个名字开始用来代表某种高档的列车旅行，而不是指某个特定的旅程。那我们看单字 route 或是念作 route， 它表示行车路线或是路途。这边还有一个重点是 rather than， 它是表达而不是而非。那这边要介绍它的词性和用法。它可以当连接词用，那这时候要连接词性相同的字词。连接动词的话，时态就必须相同。举例来说 ，We took the stairs rather than the elevator。我们走楼梯而非搭电梯。那补充一下 ，rather than 在连接不定词的时候，那后面 to v 的这个 to 通常会省略。例如 ，Dave prefers to jog in the park rather than work out at a gym。Dave 比较喜欢在公园慢跑，而不是在健身房运动。句子里面的 work out at a gym 前面就省略了 to。第二个 rather than 可以当介系词，那后面要接名词或动名词，这时候它就相当于 instead of。举例来说 ，rather than taking a taxi, they walked home。他们走路回家，而不是搭计程车。好，介华课文中。
Okay, we are back. So the Orient Express had been around since 1883.
That's right.
But there's something that happened about 50 years later that really made this a famous train and a famous train journey, right?
And we're going to tell you about it. So interest in the Orient Express grew in 1934 after murder mystery author Agatha Christie published Murder on the Orient Express. Oh, so it's a famous book, right? The murder mystery book, and that is why it's so famous.
That is exactly right. So this was published in 1934, so yeah, about 50 years after the train first started to run. When we publish something, you're basically putting a book or something like that, written words onto paper, and you're putting them in a book or a magazine or a newspaper. We publish all of these different things, and you're making it available for people to buy and to sell and to take home and read on their own. So anytime if someone has a book, unless they just put it online, which you would probably say, I uploaded my book online, but if you actually put it onto paper, put a cover on it, put it out there in stores, you have published that book, and now it is available for people to buy and own. For example, after years of hard work, the author was excited to finally publish her first novel. That's a very big moment in any writer's life. So here we have Agatha Christie, a very famous writer of murder mystery stories. She's actually one of the most successful writers in English in history. She has sold millions of books. I'm sure you can find many of them in Chinese if you want to not read them in English, and many of them have made into movies, as we learn now. The book, The Murder on the Orient Express, it's right there in the title. The book saw Detective Hercule Poirot investigate a suspicious death on the train.
Sounds interesting.
Yes, wherever her characters go, people die, and then those characters have to figure out who the killer is and that kind of stuff. And since then, since that first book was first published, since then, several film and TV adaptations have brought the tale to new audiences, most recently in 2017. I think it's been made into a movie like 4 times or something like that.
Really?
It is a very popular story.
I should really watch it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking at this word here, detective, and that is a noun. A detective is someone whose job is to find out information, especially about crimes, like a real-life mystery solver, like who has been killed, who was murdered, and the detective is supposed to find out details about that and to find out who the killer is. So for example, you can say, the detective carefully examined the crime scene for any clues, because you don't want to miss any clues. If you miss any clues, you might not be able to solve the mystery.
Exactly right. And the detective is probably very suspicious of everyone on the train. Anyone here could be the killer of this poor man. Now, when you're suspicious of something, this adjective means you have many questions and not a lot of trust. You think something's going on. You don't know what is going on, but you have questions, you have worries, you want to find out the answers. And you don't really believe what people are telling you. So if someone tells you something and you're like, that can't be true, that's gotta be a lie. You're feeling very suspicious about this, or you might come home and see things that make you go, something's going on here and I don't know what it is, right? If you suddenly came home and found your front door open, that's very suspicious. Who leaves the front door open? You go inside, did someone come in and steal things? Oh, it's just my mother carrying in a lot of groceries and she didn't close the door. She's in the kitchen. You know, often there's a simple answer, but if you have the questions and you don't have the answers, you might be feeling suspicious. For example, his suspicious actions began to worry his neighbors. Why is that man always cleaning his house at 4 o'clock in the morning? What's going on?
He's trying to clean up the evidence.
Ooh, that could be he's a murderer. No, he's just got a cat with a lot of hair.
Oh, okay. That could be it too.
That's it.
在1934年，推理小说作家 Agatha Christie 出版了《东方快车谋杀案》之后，人们就对东方快车的兴趣大幅提升。那这本书是在讲一名侦探在列车上调查一起可疑命案的故事。这个故事后来也有被多次改编成电影和电视剧。好，单字 publish 这个动词表示出版。发表，像发表作品、出版作品，它也可以表达发行的意思。Detective 则是指侦探、警探。Suspicious 是形容可疑的、起人疑窦的。那介绍课文中。
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today, though. We hope we've whetted your appetite, gotten you a little interested in the Orient Express, minus the murder.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the murder's in the story. The train is quite safe. I don't think anyone... That's a good question. Has anyone really been murdered
on the train?
But I don't think that happens these days. And if it does, wow, that murderer is very rich.
That's right.
Yeah, so we're going to find out more about this legendary train journey tomorrow. Come back and join us for that.
See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
On October 4th, 1883, the Orient Express set off on its first journey. This 7-day round trip from Paris to Constantinople, now Istanbul, raised the bar for high-class train travel. The Orient Express was the brainchild of Georges Nagelmakers, a Belgian businessman. Nagelmakers was inspired by sleeper trains he had seen in the US. However, he wanted to improve on the American experience. So, he created a service that combined railway travel with unbeatable style. His trains had sleeping cars that were as comfortable as any hotel, beautiful decorations, and even restaurants serving top-quality food. Originally, the name Orient Express was used to describe a specific service that traveled across Europe via the grand cities of Strasbourg, Munich, Vienna, Budapest, and Bucharest. However, new routes were added later. Over time, the name came to represent a certain type of high-end train travel rather than a particular journey. Interest in the Orient Express grew in 1934 after murder mystery author Agatha Christie published Murder on the Orient Express. The book saw Detective Hercule Poirot investigate a suspicious death on the train. Since then, Several film and TV adaptations have brought the tale to new audiences, most recently in 2017.
最后，我们来复习今天课文里的单字文法。单字的部分有第一个 journey 是名词，表示旅程、旅行；第二个 route 或念 route 名词，表示行车路线、路途；第三个 publish 是动词，表示出版、发表，像发表作品或是指发行；第四个 detective 名词，表示侦探、警探；第五个 suspicious 它是形容可疑的、起人疑窦的。文法的部分，第一个我们学到 raise the bar 表示提高门槛、提高标准或是提升要求。第二个学到 as 形容词 as any 加名词，这表示跟任何什么什么一样怎么样。这个句型用来强调某事物跟任何事物相比毫不逊色。第三个我们学到 rather than 表示而不是、而非。那它当连接词用的话，要连接词性相同的字词；它当介系词用的话，后面要接名词或动名词，就相当于 instead of。以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
When visiting Ita Thau Pier on the east side of Sun Moon Lake, you will learn a lot about the indigenous culture of the Thau people. But what if you are in the mood for shopping? Well, you're in luck, because there is a shopping street waiting for you at Ita Thau Pier. Next to Ita Thau Pier is a shopping street. It's filled with indigenous handicraft stores, restaurants, and food stands. The street is very popular in the Sun Moon Lake area. Tourists can try Thau food. There are also local snacks like grilled wild boar meat and mushroom tea eggs. There is a food stand called 免记做不付卖. It sells cabbage and mushroom buns. The buns are deep fried and stuffed with juicy fillings. There is another popular store called Boneless Chicken Wing with sticky rice. The owner takes the bone out of chicken wings and stuffs them with Thau sticky rice. The chicken wings are crispy and the sticky rice is chewy. On the shopping street, you can also buy indigenous goods such as postcards, passport holders, and woven bags. When you go to Sun Moon Lake, make sure to visit Ita Thau. Sticky and chewy are terms we in Taiwan regularly use to describe food, and it doesn't seem strange to us at all. But in the eyes of many people from the Western world, these are adjectives you would not find appetizing if associated with food. Let's talk about the word chewy, for example. Chewy means food that needs to be chewed hard or takes time before being swallowed. Sounds like a lot of hard work, and no one wants to work hard for their own food. But on the other hand, in Chinese, we even have a cute way to say chewy, which is Q, and we don't seem to mind as much about chewy foods. It's just a cultural difference, but thought you should know. Anyways, hope you learned a lot about the Ita Thau Pier shopping street.